Welcome to the second part of our series of videos on building a super twin for Michael Rutter to compete at the IOM TT races. This video is brought to you from the dyno room at MSS Performance, and the reason we're here is because we're a little bit behind schedule, if we're being completely honest. This video was supposed to be one about us getting all the two bikes prepped, built and going through the testing program of the dyno and at a track somewhere. But alas, when we left for the NW200, which is now a couple of weeks ago at the time of filming this, we didn't even have the R7 with us in the truck. Reason for that is simple. Basically, there's just been lots of delays on parts that we really needed for this bike. So quick recap of the project so far. Basically, we've got a couple of R7s for Bathams racing, and we are applying the rule book to them, which means we can do a ton of work to the engine, and has been done. Camshafts, pistons, conrods, Suter clutch, Nova gearbox, all those kind of things to get power up from 70 to a minimum of 100 horsepower. She's got a big fuel tank, K-Tech suspension front and rear, regulation Metzler tyres, and the reason we're back here after the Northwest is because any day now the key component will be arriving, which is a ram airbox system. So what actually happened at the Northwest? Well, we left without the bike. The bike was actually in this room at the time, having just been assembled with the tuned engine, and the guys here at MSS were working really long hours getting fuel maps just right for what we had, even though we all knew what it really needed was this airbox. But nonetheless, the team didn't have the bike at the Northwest for the first qualifying at the on Tuesday, so we didn't set a time for that. The next opportunity to ride the bike was on the Thursday. Now, the guys at MSS sent a volunteer over in a small van with the R7. That arrived at the team's truck quite late on the Wednesday night. So a bit of midnight oil was burnt getting all the bodywork fitted, and a few other little things needed tidying up, needed a steering damper fitting, a bit of the wiring. So we did all that, finished late, made it to scrutineering on the Thursday morning, and the first time this bike actually turned a wheel was in second and final qualifying session on the Thursday before the race. So Michael went out on the bike, came back in, we gave it a check over, and then went back out, and he stayed out because you have to complete a certain amount of laps to even qualify for the race. He actually set the 5th fastest time in that session, but at the same time as setting the 5th fastest time, he was 22nd fastest through the speed traps. So straight away, you know, what we all knew and what we expected in the absence of this ram airbox, the bike was relatively slow. I say relatively, he was still doing 145, 146 miles an hour on on just a little humble R7, which you could argue was never designed for this bike. But yeah, the front guys were up in the sort of high 150s, even some of them were in the low 160s. So we're well down on top speed, but well up obviously on the standard bike. So, you know, we've taken a big step forward, but not quite enough. Rest of the bike, absolutely spot on, no complaints whatsoever. He's very happy with the way the chassis felt, riding position, everything about it. Gets a big thumbs up from Michael. The only thing we really changed between qualifying and the race, which was on the Saturday, was the gearing. Basically the final drive, we had to take a bit of a guess. We have no idea what gearing to put on it. We fitted a thinner 520 chain, probably could go thinner again. It's only about 100 horsepower, give or take. But we had a guess on the sprocket sizes. They weren't great, basically. He wasn't even using 6th gear in that session. So no problem, we started gathering the data. We knew where we had to go on the gearing for the race. We did that, put a couple of teeth extra on the rear, which might have got him through 6th gear, maybe for a higher top speed. And then went into the race. And because of where he qualified, because it was a wet session, although it was actually declared dry, so his wet lap time actually was combined with the Tuesday times, so he actually had to start back in 20th. So he was at the back of the first wave, which was a bit frantic to say the least. He got away and nearly went up the pavement actually just after the start, and did his best to hang on to the back of the group, but ultimately the bike just didn't have the legs to stay with anyone. So the decision was made to just basically park it, save the mileage, save the tyres. There wasn't much point in carrying on completing the races when we knew exactly what needs to be done with this bike. So All the team's other bikes have gone over to the Isle of Man now. They don't come back to the workshop, but we've brought this back here to the guys at MSS. The ram air system is due any day now, so we're going to get that fitted and redo the fuel mapping on it, and then I'll be bringing it over with me to the TT, and hopefully we'll get some testing there out on the Derby airfield to just validate everything before Michael takes it down Bray Hill. Right, so the problem with the R7 in its current state was always going to be the airbox. On the road bike, the airbox is like about this big, and it's got two little intakes like that, and it just doesn't get enough air in. And obviously the more air you can get in, the more fuel you can put in, the more fuel you can put in, the more power you can make. It's that simple. So we cut a hole in the top of the airbox to see if we could get a bit more air in that way, and that was okay. But you know, straight away Michael's like described the sensation as he's sat on the bike going down the long straights at the northwest. You know, and he can just feel the bike can't breathe. It's getting no air into it. So clearly this is the area we need to work on. But in a desperate bid to try something, anything at the time in between, because the race was actually red flagged, so we had an opportunity in between the race, the first part of the race and then the restart, to just try and experiment. And it just goes to show, even a big well-organised, slick team like Bathams Racing, you know, can even get down and dirty with drills and Stanley knives. We actually cut out the sides of the airbox on both sides just to try and get more air in, and took a Stanley knife to the bell mouths there just to try and get more air in somehow. Fairly safe in the knowledge that it probably wouldn't work, but we were at a point where Michael was, you know, basically about to park the bike, but prepared to try something, even just on the one tiny % chance that it might actually make a few more horsepower. It didn't. So the Ram Airbox is quite a simple device, but it's quite a complex design in so much as to manufacture it is quite a big thing. So what it does is it connects to the back of the central scoop at the front of the fairing, where on the road bike the headlight is. In fact, the size of that scoop is probably bigger than the actual airbox is on the road bike alone, and then it feeds it through a duct down the side and into the side. And fits sealed onto the edge of a completely new airbox, which is much bigger there. So what we're getting is massive increase in air supply, and obviously because it's Ram Air, the faster he goes, the more air he gets. It's kind of quite a simple equation really to understand. So this is going to take this bike from where it is at the moment, which is a sweet handling little thing, up to hopefully something that is a sweet handling thing, but with the power we need to give Michael a shot at the TT. At the time of recording this video, the airbox is somewhere between America and here, and I'm due to leave for the Isle of Man in 7 days' time with this bike in a van to take over to go racing on. All the collective know-how and wisdom about bike tuning says that if we can get this highly tuned engine breathing better, this bike should be an absolute flyer. We can't wait to get this part fitted and get the bike on the van and over to the Isle of Man to see just what we've managed to do in a short space of time, and if we're going to get anywhere near our goal of competing at the TT.